We're on.
Okay, 3 minutes late, but off on the right foot. So hello, everyone. Hi, RM, who's joining us right now. We are Christina and Sarah from One Woman Shop, onewomanshop.com, a resource hub and community for female solo business owners like ourselves. Christina's going to introduce our topic, but this is our weekly The Hot Seat show where we kind of bring up different topics that we see amongst our members, our community, the people we interact with on a daily basis that they run into when they're running their solo business. So we are going to talk for probably about 15-20 minutes and then open up a seat if anybody wants to join the conversation. So Christina, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. So today's topic is freedom and flexibility as a solopreneur. So our question is, do you feel the freedom in your solo business that you thought you would when you started it? And so this topic is something I think we both feel very passionate about because it comes up a lot. It comes up in our own lives, like Sarah said, and with people we work with. And it is the first topic. It is literally the first topic I wrote down when I was like, we should do a little talk show hot seat thing. So this topic has been on the list for a long time. So I'm super excited that we're finally getting to it. So the first question is, what the heck is freedom? Because it means so many different things to so many different people. So you and I were just talking about this, Sarah. Do you want to go ahead and talk about what freedom means to you in your solo business and what you just mentioned? There's something, I don't even think about that in terms of freedom.
Yes.
So jump in.
We both agree that freedom looks different for everybody. But when it comes to how we define freedom, Christina had written some ideas down in a shared Google Doc because there's one of those for everything. And to me, I automatically go to scheduling. So freedom and flexibility when it comes to how I design my days, my weeks, how I spend my time. And that for me is the big question of, did I actually gain that freedom and flexibility when I took my side hustle full time 2 years ago? One of the other ideas Christina had written down was financial freedom, which hadn't even crossed my mind. So we absolutely realize that when people are thinking about freedom, they are thinking about it in a ton of different ways. Christina, do you want to talk about what a few of the other ones are?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first one also is how I spend my time and scheduling. And so that is definitely the first thing that pops into my head. But then for me, something that is ever present in my life is location freedom. So we host Location Independence Month. We hosted it last July, and we talk all about being a digital nomad or being location independent. I live in Guatemala. So pretty cool example of having location independence. So that is definitely something that it means to me. And then I would say the last piece that we've thought of, and we would love for you guys to chime in. Yes, Guatemala, RM. I live in Guatemala. And so you guys can definitely chime in with other types of freedom that you experience or don't experience, as the case may be. But another one that comes up a lot is emotional freedom. And so that's kind of, are you spending 24/7 obsessing about your clients, obsessing about your business, and feeling like you're always on call, like you have no boundaries? That is obviously an example of not being so free in your solo business. And then I think the most important part, other than how you define freedom based on your priorities, is the reality versus freedom in theory. So we posted in our private Facebook group for members about this topic that we were talking about here on Blab. And one of our members, Ashley Brooks, chimed in and she was talking about the freedom of unlimited earning potential, which is awesome. However, I would wager a guess that a lot of people, while they feel in theory free about their earning potential, in reality, they're not feeling so financially free in their solo business. Do you agree, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always interesting to see different perspectives. And I think that honestly, even though it's not the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm not saying that because I'm in like this stellar financial place, I'm saying it because when I left my job, it was mostly to gain the freedom and flexibility of scheduling, knowing that I would have to do the work to make the money. Right. But I think that financial is the other biggest thing we see. Because a lot of times, like I kind of wrote the location thing in with the scheduling and the freedom to do what you want with your time. It's also to work from where you want. like this beautiful buffalo kitchen of my mother. But financial and
or wear your slippers.
Right.
On top, but I don't look so nice on bottom, you guys.
I was just gonna lift my leg up. I'm like, that's just awkward. Yes, RM, exactly. Pajamas. I have leggings on, which I would wear out, but I think most people look at me and are like, are those your pajamas? Anyway, but financial is definitely a big one, and it's something that we see a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then I think you and I haven't talked about this, but my other point or question is, does it matter? So say that you feel like your example, and I'll let you tell your own story, but say you feel like all your productive time is used, it's maximized, you're working maybe 60 hours a week in your solo business. However, so you don't feel free in that sense. However, you would 12 times over rather be running your solo business that you feel hopefully passionate about than working a 60-hour work week in corporate America. So like, I guess does it matter? Does freedom actually matter?
Really, that's where it's like, yes, it matters, but we have to look at it from different perspectives, because that is putting it in perspective. Would I prefer to work a 16-hour day and then take a Friday off to spend with my niece and then know that I might pay for it later, over knowing that in my last job, I would have owed somebody that time, not been paid for that time, felt guilty because of an obligation to somebody else. So it's definitely putting it in perspective. And that's where when we back up, it's really easy to say, well, no, it doesn't matter. But in the day-to-day, when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, it is important to kind of look at this stuff and see if there are things you can do to increase your path to that freedom that you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. So, RM, I know when you see the YouTube replays, you can't see the chat, but RM is telling us that she's not camera ready, but she can be on audio. So we will just dive super quick into kind of our personal experiences. And then RM, if you want to jump on not camera, but on audio, we would love to have you and talk to you about your definition of freedom and if you feel like you have it in your solo business. But
I'm not sure if you can turn the video off on Blab though, Christina. But
Blab turns it off for you.
Blab is always tricking me with new features. So
okay, well we'll give it a go.
Yeah. RM has a trick. Oh, perfect. Okay. So for me, this topic is really important because I think when I left my full-time job, I had this, and I don't think I was completely naive, but I still read everything that told me that I was going to have this still a 40 to 45 hour work week, but I was going to have my time where I worked. I was going to take frequent breaks and go to yoga. I was going to read for like an hour a day, like out on a lawn somewhere in the sun. It was going to be such a different lifestyle. And I think what happened was just naturally as solopreneurs, and we see this with most of our one-woman shops, is that we're all naturally ambitious go-getters. And so we kind of just start taking stuff on, and the idea of saying no doesn't come until much later. So for me, my personal kind of aha moment was in the spring when I was working with my business coach, and I was looking at the amount of time I had allotted to different clients. And just between my retainer clients, I had allotted 60 hours per week of work. And that was not including any of my one-off projects. And that was not including any work for a one-woman shop.
Or for your own business, right?
Or for my own business. Perfect.
Yes. Something you preach all the time. So
yeah. And still, that's like in the back of my mind. So I looked at this and, she said to me, like, this is impossible. And she's right. And I still run into this issue sometimes where you just have to be a little more realistic. But to me, at that point, I had to step back and look at what my freedom really meant to me. And working 60 hours a week on retainer clients and having zero time for anything else was not what I wanted to be doing. And so I wrote a post on our site called "The Path Toward Freedom is the Hardest Road," because at that point, I had to get rid of clients that I didn't necessarily want to get rid of. I liked working with them, but it was just not realistic to be telling them I could devote X amount of hours per week to them when I knew I had other stuff I wanted to do. And now each and every time, I'd say, because it's, I'm a copywriter, it's a service-based business, this is where it comes up the most for me. And I know that differs from other people's situations, but this is where every time a new opportunity comes up, and Christina reminds me of this frequently because I want to work on one-woman shop more. I have to look at it in perspective of, is this worth taking on, when I know that it doesn't mean I'm just adding it to my plate. It means I have to give up something else, instead of just saying, I can probably fit that in somewhere. And I'm certainly not good at this as much as I want to be. It's definitely a work in progress. But that's kind of when I'm talking about freedom, I am certainly talking about getting myself to a point where I'm not filling every single minute of every single day with work, and I'm leaving space for the things that are going to make me a better person to be friends with, to be for my husband, for my family, for One Woman Shop, for my clients, the best person I can be to show up and do, what I've promised or what I want to do.
Definitely. And RM just pointed out, and RM, I want you to say this all live again, but there's a freedom in having a choice. And so I think that goes back to my point originally, is like, it's the choice of, I'm choosing these 60 hours or 40 hours, because 60 hours is crazy, or these 30 hours, but I'm choosing it.
Right.
And so I think that definitely is a great point, RM.
Yeah. And just to add to that, it's kind of funny. I think I'm trying to remember if it was Seth Godin. It was one of the blogs I read regularly where they were actually saying that now that we have so many choices, it actually makes it a lot more difficult for us to keep things in perspective and kind of mitigate that overwhelm, because we are presented with so many choices. But so choice can have that can be a whole nother blab.
It always can. There's always 10 branches off of the one block. Well, I was just going to say, my adventure in freedom as a solo business owner. So I used to do client work, and I realized I don't like client work, and I'm not opposed to going back to it in the future. Maybe I just didn't have good enough systems in place, but I definitely felt like my time was very restricted. I felt like charging by the hour, which whole nother blab again, figuring out how to charge. I now am totally an advocate of retainers, but I felt like charging by the hour does not encourage you to, it doesn't encourage you to be productive, and it doesn't encourage you to be efficient. And so that was definitely my challenge with clients, is I felt like very attached to the hours and to their timelines. Whereas like running One Woman Shop, I feel this flexibility of, yes, we have members, and yes, we want to be responsive. However, it's not on as strict a timeline. Then clients bring in money. And so I think that a struggle for me for sure has been, I keep some contract work on the side doing recruiting. And I like it. It's not my passion, but passion is overrated anyway, whatever, different blab. But that's where the thing that brings in the most consistent money. And so there's would I like to give that up? Sure. But it's also a necessity. So that's kind of where I am in terms of feeling the freedom or not.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm going on mute because FedEx just came in. So as you can probably hear, my dog is going crazy until I acknowledge it. I kind of wanted, I should probably quiet her before we go on.
No worries. Guys, we have all kinds of technical issues around here. So let's see. Alma just asked in the comments, what is One Woman Shop? Great question. We are a resource hub and community for women solo business owners, so women running their own businesses. RM put in the link, onewomanshop.com. So we have a lot of different offerings, but our fundamental core is a membership site. So we have 2 different levels of membership. We love coffee. I'm drinking tea right now, but it's salted caramel and it's so good. But normally we are such coffee advocates, so we decided to just name our membership levels after coffee. So we have coffee as our lower level, and then espresso is kind of our bonus level. So hopefully that is a good overview for you, Alma. But Sarah's back from quieting her dog. So we would like to invite RM, if you want to come on audio. I will open up the seat and you can grab it.
Yes, and Jenny is actually the business coach I was referencing earlier, and our inspiration for Blab, of course.
Yes. Hi, RM. Oh, Blab. For the most part. RM?
We cannot hear you yet.
I'm pretty curious about this trick, and my hypothesis is that you just covered up your webcam, and I think that that's genius.
Okay, so while we're waiting for our one of the questions that really changed my perspective when I was going through my shift of if I really want to get closer to that freedom I talk about, I need to start making some changes, was a Seth Godin question in a blog post that said, what are you willing to give up today in exchange for something better tomorrow? And that to me was like, I don't necessarily just need to get things off my plate that don't make me happy. Sometimes you have to let go of stuff that works for you, or clients that still fit you, things that you're committed to that you still want to do, but you need to let them go in order to make that space for something better later. Do you agree with that, Christina?
I do, and I would say that, oh, no, we lost our own. But I would say that the example, it's kind of indirect, but this is how my mind works, so I'll try to connect the dots. But when we have been going over blog posts, we have been getting a ton of guest posts, which is awesome. We're super thrilled. And we find that if we're trying to do everything in our business, we don't have the time to go through, and by we, I mean Sarah, because Sarah takes it on, does all the editing, but to go through all these guest posts that we get. And so what I've been telling Sarah, and I think it applies to the whole rest of your business, is there is always going to be something valuable in every single post. There's always something that someone can learn, but even if it's valuable, we cannot put in 10-hour days to edit all these posts. So sometimes you have to let go of a post, even though it's good, you have to let it go in order to do the rest of your business. So I would say does that make sense? Like applying that to the rest of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for us right now, it's guest posts because that's kind of what we're inundated with. And then for a different business, it could be any aspect of your business, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yay, you can hear me now.
Yeah. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. And you're right. I did cover up the camera. So it's this really pretty little postcard that I got from postable.com.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, this is a nice little thing to look at while I hide my face from.
Although I'm sure you're more camera ready than we've been on some of these calls.
No, trust me. There's a bad scene over here.
I feel like it's when they do like the interrogations on like documentaries and they have to blur the faces.
Oh yeah.
You're a top secret.
Okay. So do we want to kind of interrogate our own then? I mean, it's the perfect situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ready for some interrogation station?
Bring it on. It is the hot seat, right?
Right.
Yes. So our question for you is, let's see how we phrased it before. Do you feel free in your solo biz? And if so, how did you get there? And if not, why do you think you don't? And what do you think you could potentially change?
So that was like 10 questions, and we can repeat that if you
Yeah, no. I got it. Let's see. So the short answer is yes. I do feel free in my solo business. It's taken me almost the entire time that I've been in business to get to this point.
That's a good reality check.
Yeah, the thing is, from what I've learned in my almost 5 years now, is the freedom you have and your experience with freedom is kind of a moving target. It's this constant kind of refining of what your values and priorities are, and then making sure that what you're doing is aligned with that. So just like that whole concept of balance, right? Like there is no real such thing as balance. It's whatever you need it to be for wherever you are right now. So when I started my business, I wanted the freedom to decide who I worked with, who I was going to be spending my time on. I was actually quite snobbish about it. And I just, I wanted to work with, I knew I still wanted to work with companies and businesses, but I wanted to like them and I wanted to care about them. I wanted for them to be impressive to me. So there had to be, something really important and awesome that those companies were doing and that they were about for me to want to even, give them any of my time or attention. So then, but as I went on, what I discovered is I also wanted to be very selective about how I spent my time working with people. So Christina, how you were saying, you're not a big fan of the client work. It's just not your jam. There's no sense of freedom in being so tied to the work you were doing with them and to the hours you spent, and having to make sure that you help them achieve the outcomes they want, or however you put it, which was so beautifully put, by the way. And that was something that I struggled with. I had to find out that my personality doesn't suit me doing certain kinds of client work. So you ladies, I think I started off as a graphic designer. And I realized very quickly, that's not how I want to spend my time. I don't want to be so into the weeds with this implementation stuff. So how can I take my expertise as a designer? What's the core of that expertise? And how can I turn that into something that supports what my strengths are? So It took another 2 years for me to figure out what my strengths really were. And that was the gift of gab, of course, having meaningful conversations with people. But more than that, helping people to get to the core of what they really wanted and what their real value was. So, it's a series of refining and understanding, what do I bring to the table? How can I use that to still, do service that mattered, that I could get paid for, but that didn't require an energy from me that wasn't within my particular set of strengths. Does that make sense?
I love that. And definitely, I love that you said implementation, because I was just thinking about how with my business, I did dabble in not implement. I first started doing social media and I would do implementation, and I realized I don't like implementing it. And so I was like, okay, well, if I do strategy and plans, I can be the idea person, and then I can pass it off to the person who's the executor. And so I think you said it really well about knowing your strengths and then creating a business that capitalizes on your strengths and doesn't necessarily eliminate your weaknesses, but kind of mitigates.
Exactly. It's all about strengthening your strengths, right? And letting those lead with the way you serve. And the wonderful thing is there's so many different kinds of people in the world who have different kinds of strengths. So where you are a true strategist, where you're all about coming up with the plans and, knowing what the action steps are, there's somebody who rocks at implementing. And so there are so many different ways that you could do it. If you are working with clients who already have a team, you could teach them how to implement those strategies. You'll just hand them off and say, all right, here you go with God, and let's see how it works out. Or you could bring someone in under you to do the implementation stuff. And funny enough, I've been developing these business archetypes around that very thing, because the people that I work with really struggle with understanding how to sort of realign the way they're working in their business to support their strengths, and what I like to call core genius. So it's not just what you're good at and what your expertise is, but your personality and your values and your priorities, and what your concept of freedom is and how that fits into the way you deliver service, the way you show up in your business. So there are these archetypes. Funny enough, there are 4 of them. One is strategist, like you, Christina, and like me, I'm 100% strategist. But then there's producer, which is the person who is doing implementation. There's the teacher, so the person who just likes to teach people how to make stuff happen, how to implement. And then there's the mentor, someone like Coach Jenny, who's kind of been there, done that, and, can show you the ropes and, kind of coach you through whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So, it's you have to understand that about yourself and realize that it's okay for your business to evolve. It's okay to hit that wall and realize this isn't working anymore, and then evolve the way you work to support where you really are, and trust that in another few years, it's probably going to change again.
Right. Yeah. No.
We both have go, Sarah. I know we both are dying with ideas right here.
I was going to ask a little bit more about when you made the comment about how there's freedom in having a choice. Is that kind of how you've related to building your business and evolving and making that choice of how it shifts? How else do you see that kind of come up in your business?
Yeah. So one of the hardest things that I hear a lot of people struggle with, and which was my struggle too, is feeling like I just had to take on what I could get, like anything I could get, because here are my skills, and here is what I'm really good at. And it was funny enough, like it's still hard for me sometimes to say no to people or certain opportunities. So I'll use the example of the graphic design work. For me, I like really kind of focused in on what my available network was at first. So I had come from working with associations, like membership associations. So all of my connections, all of my contacts were with other companies, other associations. So for me, I felt like, okay, well, these are the only clients I can get because this is the only experience I have, right?
Okay.
But I couldn't stand them. I hated them because their values, they weren't aligned with mine. Now, that isn't to say that some membership groups aren't wonderful. One Woman Shop is one of them. That's just awesome.
The best.
But the professional associations that I was dealing with, they didn't care about branding or communications in a way that I cared about it. So I couldn't stand them. But I was so afraid to try to make a shift or make a move because I thought, well, this is the best I can do because this is all I know. So deciding that I had to decide that I had a choice, but then I had to get really clear about who I wanted to choose. And so again, another maybe year or two of soul searching and figuring out who did I really care about enough to want to, work with and all that stuff. But yeah, so to answer your question, the freedom and choice, who you work with, how you spend your time, even like how many clients. And Christina, you were talking about like you're not in love with the implementation stuff, but if you decided that implementation was kind of like the highest level of service that you would ever offer, you could be really, really selective about who you provide that level of support to. So that was something else that I had to decide. Now, I've still completely cut design out of my services because it's an energy that pulls completely away from what my strengths are. But I know that I can advise people on visual identity and stuff like that because it's still within my skill set. So yeah, that answer was kind of all over the place.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, first question. Do you have a resource, either your own or someone else's, that lays out those 4 different archetypes? Because I think that is huge.
Yes.
Drop it in the chat.
I've been so ready for you to ask me that question.
You're welcome. The other thing I was thinking of, and we'll add this to our Amazon store, which is onewomanshop.com/shop. But I am a huge fan of the Strengths Finder, which goes back to what you were saying, RM, about finding your strengths. And I think the whole purpose of the book is to kind of figure out your strengths. And again, to my point, it's not about only focusing on your strengths, because there are things like you're going to have to learn to do as a business owner that you don't love and you're maybe not great at, but it's about maximizing those strengths. So we'll definitely pop that into the shop later. And then, I also just wanted to say to your comment, we had this comment in on our Google Doc, and then it's been said in the chat on the side here, is about this idea of outsourcing. So my example is going to be, if you don't want to do something, so like graphic design, I would love to be able to do graphic design, and I can't. Like, I am just, it's terrible. So we have this amazing designer, though, that I'm like, will be like 3 adjectives: sleek, professional, and then she sends something over, and we're like, that's what we didn't know we wanted. Yeah. You just completely captured it. And so my point there is going to be, your boss probably wouldn't be thrilled if you're at a job and you're kind of like casually outsourcing parts of your job. That's probably not going to go over super well if you're outsourcing things that they're paying you to do. But you can do that in a business.
Yes. Which is awesome, right? And especially as a solo business, I mean, this is the beauty of being in business for yourself and, being like at the helm of this one-woman shop. You can collaborate with other people who complement you in ways that you could never do when you're working with a company. I mean, you could, but if you're not in control of hiring, then you kind of just have to hope that you're going to get the kind of, the kind of team member. So, but when you're in business for yourself, you can decide, okay, well, here's my style. Here are the kinds of strategies that I can come up with for clients, and you can pick and choose who the right designers are. For me, because I'm, an overall business strategist, so I get all up in your business. I'm looking at designers, I'm looking at copywriters, I'm looking at, pricing and negotiation consultants. And so there's so many different areas of business that my strategies affect, but I can collaborate with other people who can fill in the skills gaps or, the expertise gaps to provide a cohesive service for my clients. So it's just, it's wonderful to be able to have those kinds of collaborations.
Yeah.
I think some people are afraid to do that, or they're worried that, their business isn't going to be enough if they don't do it all.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We feel that. Yep. All of the things. We always say hashtag all of the things.
all the things.
Hashtag the struggle is real,
No, so this is super helpful. And I think, so RM beautifully summed up the fact that, there's freedom in choice, and you have to sometimes make the hard choices or just the choices that are most intentional and make the most sense. There's outsourcing and figuring out what you just aren't good at, or what your strengths are, and what somebody else can do better. I know there are several other strategies for creating more freedom. So we'd love for somebody else to kind of jump in and join our chat if you'd like to. Christina just opened the seat there. One of the things we've been talking about a lot is the idea of dropping what's not serving you anymore, whether that is a client or whether that's just something that you've been doing that isn't working for you anymore. But Shannon joined us in the chat before and basically said this is not a myth, so it'll be interesting to see what she can add here.
So we just got 2 requests. RM, will you be offended if we kick you out?
No worries.
We're so glad you joined us, though.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, ladies.
Okay. Guys. Okay, sorry, Shannon, I kicked you out.
All right, we got you.
Out left and right. Oh, right. We're gonna try this 2 at the same time.
All right.
This is going to be an interesting discussion.
Real quick.
I'm sorry, 2 of you were talking at the same time.
Sorry.
Would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Okay. I'm a therapist coach, and I approach working with clients from the standpoint of my experience. For 11 years, I was a stockbroker, so I understand how to break a business down. I understand the business cycle. From the therapist or coach standpoint, I also understand how we set up mental roadblocks that prevent, even though we have the best of intentions, all kinds of desire, we still sometimes self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. And part of what I was saying over there in the comments is that it is possible. Well, a lot of times we go into business based upon the models we have seen. And the solopreneur model basically says, I'm chief cook and bottle washer, and I'm going to do everything from morning, noon to night. Okay.
Jill of all trades.
And your business is based upon how long you can operate as the pack mule. Okay. And the reality is there are only so many hours in the day that you, the pack mule, can actually operate. Okay. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we ultimately find ourselves basically saying, I've either got to put in more hours or raise my price. And most of us are hesitant to raise the price. So we go for the more hours. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you go back and look at how you structured your business, and the other young lady, she focused on it, sort of really going back to say, what is it that I enjoy doing? And because a lot of us, we want to do seminars and we want to talk to people, we want to see clients. But again, you can only do so much. So it comes back to using technology and to a certain degree, social media. Because I know when I started my business, I wanted to see clients. And then I realized I'm an introvert. People drain me, okay? So what I realized is that, yes, I'm good one-on-one, but I can't do that for a long period of time. So, and this is where you have to jump out of your comfort zone and take advantage of the things that will allow you to scale your business. I taught myself Audacity, which is an audio recording program. And I started doing CDs. And now I've gone to downloads, okay? I've also begun to structure classes so I can more or less teach people video what I do. These things now work 24 hours a day, okay? So the pack mule can rest. Yes. And that's the thing that I'm saying, that we need to look at the models that we have set up for ourselves. And God bless the people who went before us, but to some degree, some of the models we've seen before no longer are, they work. They're not as effective in this day and age. So you instantly want to start thinking, once you've more or less set up, how can I multiply myself? Yeah. You know, I firmly believe in multiplication of effort, because I know when I was a stockbroker, and I'll shut up here pretty soon, that as soon as I got a new client, the first thing I said to them, do you know of anyone else who might be interested in using my services? Even before we had done a trade, just because, you know, our natural inclination, first off, is to basically say, oh, well, we need to wait till they've done something or they've bought something. No, from an emotional standpoint, when the bloom is still on the rose, start asking for things. Start asking for things. And if you notice, you know, and I'll say this last thing, go to Amazon. It's a perfect example. When you purchase something from Amazon, what's the first thing that pops up? This little window that says, people who purchased this also looked at that.
I love that.
Okay.
I love that example.
Yes. Yes. You now have the option of the person saying, no, I'm just going to buy that, or saying, there's a reason why those other people, social proof, why those other people bought those other things. Maybe I should buy it too. So rather than one sale, you now have two, or possibly three or four. So those are all the mechanisms in terms of what I was speaking of using technology to expand yourself. And now I'll take a deep breath and allow someone else to speak.
Those are awesome points.
Yeah, no, we very much appreciate you sharing your perspective, and your analogies are fantastic.
Yes, like
I've suffered through some of the same things that other people have, of basically saying, well, I want to do this, but I don't have enough money to do it. Or, you know, and women especially, we get into this thing of perfectionism, that it has to be grand and perfect before we're willing to do it. Whereas the guys are sitting over there saying, what's the least viable product? What's the smallest thing? You know, it can be limping along, but what's the smallest thing I can put out there, get the customer reaction, and then begin to tweak it to send out that next least viable product. And that's what Seth Godin is talking about. And I always have to beat this into my head when he says, I keep shipping. I keep shipping. So I work on something and I get it out the door. And then I get feedback from it. So I send it back out the door with that change. And I get more feedback and I send it back out. You know, whereas we sit there and say, well, I want it to be perfect, and then I'll send it out. And by then, someone's stolen your idea and made millions.
Very good point. So we do have to cut you off though, because we like to keep a time limit.
Okay.
But no, great points, and thank you so much. So we are going to hop over to Shannon. And so Shannon, if you definitely had some comments in the chat. And we just want
to. Yes, I like your very solid intro of it is not a myth. So tell us a little bit more about your business and then kind of jump into your take on this.
Yeah, Sarah, it's good to see you again. And One Woman Shop, what's your name?
One Woman Shop, obviously. That's my concept name. Yeah, I'm Christina.
Christina, nice to meet you.
It's really nice to meet you as well.
Sarah follows me on Facebook, so she probably sees way more than she wants to see about this life that I built for myself as a solopreneur. I've been in business for just 2.5 years, and I have rocked this thing because, and I will say this for one reason, and I say this really with all of my heart and my soul, my heart's in the right place. I do not come down on my prices, and I do not negotiate things that are non-negotiable in my life, like morning yoga with my husband, morning breakfast with my husband, full on vegan time in the day to cook vegan meals for both my husband and I. And it has been a game changer in my life, but also in my business, to create this freedom and this schedule that I have longed for a long time. I was a teacher, a public school teacher for 15 years, and I threw all of that away and walked away from that. Because I didn't have any freedom in my schedule. I didn't have the freedom to cook. I didn't have the freedom to spend the mornings with my husband. And when I really talk to people and they interview me and we talk about this idea of, you know, the question they always ask is, Shannon, well, how are you doing it all? Like, you're traveling around the world. You built a business where you can write books, you can travel around the world, you can teach classes around the world. That was all very intentional. And the intention was that I was going to work every day from 10 until 4 with an hour for lunch and time to pee, because as teachers, we do not even have lunch or pee time. And I was not going to work on Friday, and I was not going to work on Saturday or Sunday. And part of that meant that I had premium pricing for the copywriting and the content. And part of that meant that I had to hear a lot of no's from people who wanted blog posts for $37 each, or $50 each, or $89 each. Like, no, I'm running a business here. I'm not going to negotiate my pricing, and I'm not going to negotiate the time and the standards and what I've done to build this business where it's at. And it has created that freedom.
So my question to you, I think that is awesome. And Sarah just popped a link to our upcoming handbook, which is Solopreneur Sanity. I was going to do the same thing. This is all stuff we talk about. Self-care is the shit. And so my question to you though, we like to keep things real, right? We want like a little bit of a reality check. I know some people get into the solopreneur game and they have no problem getting clients at their prices. Like, some people have that. Other people struggle day in and day out. So my question to you is, what would you tell a solopreneur who says, this is really, self-care is important to me, vegan cooking is important to me, however, people are not biting at my prices? Sure. What would you say to them?
Well, you know, that's a content problem in my world. And I address this with the clients. You have to show your worth and you have to show your value. And the way that you do that is you host teleseminars. The first 1.5 years, I did nothing but a free teleseminar every night from 8 to 9 p.m. to build my list. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to work from 8 to 9 p.m. Right? Like, my husband was home from work, but I knew that I needed a list, and I knew I needed to prove myself that I was worth the words, in this case, worth the words that I was telling people to do, right? So you have to have the content to back up. You have to have the content that builds yourself as a content expert, a thought leader. You have to have people skills. Like, seriously, you need to follow up, and you need to do it in a nice way. And when people tell you no, you have to take that as not a personal attack. And this was something I had to learn, right? Mm-hmm. No is no, because 99% of the time, they can't afford you or they don't think it's a good fit. It has nothing to do with me personally, right? And to me, no is not a no forever. It's a no right then. And you better believe I market in my calendar that I'm following up with them 2 months later. And I've gotten a lot of that business. You know, they've tried the blogger for $37.50 and it didn't work. I tried to tell them that months ago. It took me a while. I never had to go out and get clients as a teacher. My students showed up. So I had to learn things that worked. But the one thing that I was not going to do was to sell myself as a starving artist writer and a content strategist who was going to give away the farm, so to speak. I mean, my blog is full of content and people can download all kinds of stuff. But I had to work hard to prove that I knew what I was talking about.
For sure.
And I think that and testimonials, you've got to get quality testimonials up on your site. And there's a content strategy for that too, right? Like you need to have a strategy for every phase of your business. And all of that falls back on content in the end.
Definitely. Love it.
Yes.
So well said. You guys are so articulate. Every single person who's joined us has just said it in a perfect way.
So I'm going to ask one more follow-up question for your non-negotiables, because this is something that Christine and I talk about all the time. What happens when something threatens those non-negotiables? And have you seen a time where you've kind of let them slip and seen a difference in how you operate?
Oh, that's a good question. So of course, life happens, right? I've learned that the clients who try and push my non-negotiables are not my ideal clients. And I've had to learn it the hard way because they push you once and then they expect to be pushed again or that they can push you again, right? So a great example is I coach on Wednesdays. My next call is coming in soon. I coach on Wednesdays. And so they have to have their call prep form into me on Tuesday night at 5 p.m. because when I wake up, I want to get prepared and make sure I know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Last week, there were 3 out of 7 private clients who didn't turn in their call prep. And I thought, well, I don't know what the universe is trying to tell me, but I did what I knew that I should do. And I emailed them all and I canceled all their calls. Like it's very clear that if your call prep isn't in, your call is getting canceled. And you know what? They were mad. Some were mad. Some apologized. They all came back this week. They all had their call preps in on time. But it's non-negotiables like that because you have to have these standards in your business. And if you don't, people are going to walk all over you, right? Mm-hmm. And so yes, high standards, non-negotiable. It doesn't mean you're mean. You just run your business a certain way so that you can have the freedom and the lifestyle that you want to have.
Yeah, Julianne's chiming in over there in the chat, and she said, I always tell myself that I'm the only advocate for my business. My new motto is that I have to be the CEO I'd want to hire. That is exactly it. Yes.
And and I think that we see that in a lot of different ways through the business. Like we talk about this with our coaching clients is I want to be the coach that I would want to hire. And I would want to hire a coach who's going to give me in a fun, playful way that reality check I need. And so we work on giving our clients the reality check that they need. So I guess, it's basically a way of saying practice what you preach. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much, Shannon.
Yes,
we are pushing our time, so we're kicking you off. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was really nice to meet you. And we like your cat.
Yeah, thank you.
My cat's a non-negotiable.
There you go.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to pop some links. We are huge advocates of bridge jobs. We've done a blab on it recently. So I'm going to link to that. And it's basically tons of benefits. But for us, you're working from a place where you don't feel completely financially strapped, which can be really liberating in your solo business and can allow you to do things like turn away clients who aren't willing to pay your premium prices. So just popped that link in the side there.
Yeah, and we have an upcoming guest post over on the Freelance to Freedom site for that. So
yeah.
Christina, you have a story? Yeah, let's hear it.
My story. It's the parable.
Okay. Yes, please share. Everybody ready for a little lesson here?
So sometimes I find content on One Woman Shop that I'm like, oh yeah, that was up there. That's such a good story. So I didn't write this parable. I'm going to drop the link in, but I'll tell the brief version. And I think it connects back to freedom in your business. So it's the parable of the fisherman. So there's a fisherman in a small coastal town, and this guy comes to town and he asks the fisherman, so you're fishing? The guy's like, yeah, I fish a little bit, and then I spend time with my wife and I play with my kids and I play my guitar and I take a siesta and I just have a lot of free time. And the MBA, the guy says, well, I'm an MBA. I'll solve your problems. You need to spend more time fishing so that you can buy a boat, and then you can hire people, and then you're going to turn this into $1 million business. You're going to have to move to New York because that's where all the big businesses are run from. And then the guy says, okay, like what's the ultimate goal? And the MBA says, well, then you get to sell your company for millions, and then you get all this free time to sit around, and you get to hang out with your wife. You get to take siestas, play with your kids, play your guitar. And so obviously, I hope I told it okay. Obviously, the point is, don't work your life away. We're not telling you not to be responsible and to plan ahead. We're not telling you don't put money into a Roth IRA, but we are saying don't get rid of all your priorities now in order to attain something 20 years from now. And I think that everyone probably knows that on some level because we're solopreneurs. But I think that message is really important to remember.
Yes. No, I'm so glad that you shared that here. I think that's a fantastic note to end on. And thank you so much to everybody that joined us, for RM, Sherry, and Shannon all grabbing seats, and everybody that was super active in the chat. We do post the recording of this over to YouTube, and it'll be here on the One Woman Shop Blab profile. And we're back next Wednesday, every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. But next week, we are going to be talking about big magic, which we're super excited about. So you can find us here.
Everyone's talking about big magic, but we don't even care because we're so obsessed. It'll be fun.
Yes.
Thanks,
all right.
Guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.